So for today's assignment for week 2, we were asked to, I guess, compare and contrast to a certain degree respiration and also the process of fermentation. As far as respiration goes, respiration has several processes that start with glucose, glycolysis, the TCA cycle, ETC, and then ultimately ATP. The focus is more on taking, let's say, glucose and coming to the final step, which is ATP. So what it is that the energy in glucose gets moved or gets transferred to bonds of ATP. So I have another index card here because this is kind of like how I process everything. And this is a glucose molecule that I drew here. And so this glucose molecule has hydrogen H bonds. It has carbon and it has oxygen. So these bonds are typically or are basically energy. The hydrogen bonds are electrons and their energy. So they all mean the same thing, and they're transferred to other molecules. So the first process is to take glucose, which is this organic molecule, and then later on it's transferred and broken down, and it's transferred to phosphate bonds and converts to carbon dioxide, which is how we breathe. So electrons are put in this oxygen, and the high glucose, so glucose is like high energy and oxygen is low energy. So the energy that's lost in between is what is known as ATP, and that's the final process of all of respiration. So as far as fermentation, one of the differences is that so fermentation is anaerobic, so there's no oxygen needed for it at all. And for respiration, it could either be aerobic or anaerobic, so it could be both as far as that goes. So those things are a little bit different. So alcohol fermentation is something that's like that's done with like wine. It's done with products so that they could be sold mass, and they produce ethanol, I believe. So alcohol fermentation does not include like the electric transport that respiration does. And so basically what fermentation is that it takes these molecules and it breaks them down, and it becomes and then it's transferred on during ATP onto these things that we know as wine, Chardonnay. Fermentation is also used in foods like cheese and milk and other things. So the process is a little bit different. It can be aerobic and anaerobic for respiration, but typically for fermentation is more of an anaerobic process. It does not need oxygen. So those are some of the differences between the two, and that's it. Thank you.